The GOP lawmaker in charge of the Senate's Homeland Security Committee says the United States ought to rethink the sanctions it has on Russia. Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, who also sits on Senate Foreign Relations, said his trip to Moscow last week revealed that U.S. sanctions are not affecting Russia in the way that they were intended. Johnson told the Washington Examiner that the U.S. would be better off targeting Vladimir Putin's allies if it insists on continuing sanctions. They would love individuals who are sanctioned to have those sanctions released so they can start traveling around again, he said. They do stink. But he also said, I've been pretty upfront that the election interference, as serious as that was, and unacceptable, is not the greatest threat to our democracy. We've blown it way out of proportion, as if it's the greatest threat to democracy, he said. We need to really honestly assess what actually happened, what effect did it have, and what effect are our sanctions actually having, positively and negatively. Johnson was part of a codel to Moscow during last week's congressional recess. He said that, after walking around the city and interfacing with the Kremlin the U.S. might want to take another look at the sanctions it has on Russia for its illegal annexation of Crimea and election meddling. Not only would punishments on Russia's oligarchs sting more for the government, Johnson observed in the interview with the Examiner, they would insulate the U.S. from alienating everyday Russians. The Russian people, they don't care if an oligarch can't buy a $10 million mansion in London, he said. Johnson said the U.S. needs to push back forcefully on Russian aggression. But that doesn't mean that we have to be enemies, he said. Donald Trump predicted his own sit-down with Putin and Kremlin officials next week would be easier than a confab with the United States' closest allies as he departed the White House for Europe on Tuesday. The president made the claim shortly before heading off to Brussels for a NATO summit. That trip is to be followed by a visit to Great Britain, where Prime Minister Theresa May's government is in chaos following the departure of cabinet ministers over Brexit. So I have NATO, I have the UK, which is in somewhat turmoil, and I have Putin, Trump said. Frankly, Putin may be the easiest of them all. Who would think, he added. Trump on Tuesday wouldn't say if Russia was a friend or foe. I really can't say right now. As far as I'm concerned, a competitor. I think that getting along with Russia, getting along with China, getting along with others is a good thing, not a bad thing, Trump said. I've said that many times for many years. So we'll see. We're meeting with Vladimir Putin on Monday. We'll see how that goes. The U.S. president has said many times that he would prefer to have a relationship with Putin, who U.S. intelligence officials have personally pegged for the 2016 election interference. He is meeting with him despite an assessment from his own intel chiefs that the Kremlin was likely to try it again. In Brussels, the U.S. ambassador to NATO, Kay Bailey Hutchison on Tuesday criticized a series of Russian actions she called malign, while standing behind Trump's decision to meet with Putin. The president believes that it is important to have a relationship with Russia so that we can talk about the importance of Russia doing better. They can do better but they're not, she said. The malign influence, they're in violation of the INF Treaty, what they're doing in Syria, in Afghanistan. There are so many areas in hybrid where Russia has come below Article 5 line, but nevertheless an effort appears to be trying to disrupt our NATO partnership, she said. Share this article. Share. Hutchison said the U.S. continues to confront Russia about its bad behavior. When NATO has a Russia Council with the ambassador from Russia, we talk about the concerns that we have about Ukraine, the concerns that we have about Crimea, she said. And the president is going to take those same messages to President Putin. He has said that he will, Hutchison added. If we all speak with the same voice and say you can come into the community of nations, you can be a major player for good, but not when you're violating your commitments, violating treaties, going into a sovereign nation and trying to kill a citizen as happened in UK. She said, referencing the Novichok attack in Britain. She said there were so many areas where Russia needs to turn around, she said. Asked by DailyMail.com at her press conference in advance of a NATO summit whether the president could be counted on to maintain a hard line on issues like Crimea, where he has blamed President Obama for the invasion, Hutchison referenced a possible negotiation on the subject. Well, I believe that it has been the position of the United States and NATO that Crimea was taken illegally, and I hope very much that we are able to return Crimea to its rightful place as a part of Ukraine, she responded. And then of course in the eastern part of Ukraine there is a lot of trouble that has been fomented by Russian forces. So I think it's very important the sovereignty of Ukraine be recognized, and that is the U.S. position, and it certainly is the position of NATO. Now could it be some other negotiation, she then asked. If there is a negotiation in which everyone agrees to the different outcome, maybe, she said. The position appeared to show daylight since White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders last week said that sanctions would not be removed until Russia returned control of Crimea to Ukraine. Sanders left room in the U.S. position for Trump to offer to ease up on election meddling sanctions, saying she did not want to get in front of President Trump's conversations.